I've always been the kind of person who needs silence to think. That's why I moved into this old cricket house at the edge of town. Cheap rent, big windows, and no neighbors for at least 100 meters in any direction. The landlord said most tenants didn't like how isolated it felt. I loved that part. At least until the night I realized silence can hide things. It started with small signs, the kind most people would shrug off. A mug I didn't remember taking out of the cabinet sitting on the counter. A window slightly open when I swore I had shut all of them before leaving for work. A faint smell of cigarettes, even though I didn't smoke. I'd told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe the window latch was loose. Maybe I'd left the mug out while scrolling on my phone. Maybe the cigarette smell drifted in from outside. But the excuses felt thin, stretched. Something in my chest kept tightening every time I walked from room to room, like I was waiting for something to step out. The worst part? Nothing ever did. The house stayed quiet. Too quiet. You know the type of silence that doesn't feel empty but occupied? That's how it started to feel. One night, after work, I came home and noticed the living room light was on. I was sure I'd turned it off. I stood in the doorway for a long moment, frozen. My brain split in two directions, one half urging me to run back to my car, the other insisting I was being dramatic. Eventually, I walked in. Everything looked normal, intact, still. I told myself maybe I'd just been rushing in the morning and forgot. But when I checked my phone's security app, the one connected to my single front door camera, the footage for the last 12 hours was gone. Corrupted file, it said. That night, I didn't sleep well. I kept waking to tiny, unidentifiable sounds, a gentle scrape, a soft thud, something brushing lightly against drywall. It reminded me of someone shifting their weight while trying to stand very still. Every time I opened my eyes, the house looked exactly the same. The same furniture, the same shadows, nothing out of place. But the quiet didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like someone was matching their breathing to mine. The breaking point came 3 nights later. I woke at 2:17 a.m. Not to a sound, but the cold, a sharp, intrusive cold swirling across my face. The window beside my bed was open, wide open. I sat up instantly. My pulse hammered so loud it filled my ears. I knew I hadn't opened that window, and the latch on it was old, stiff. It needed 2 hands to budge. Someone had opened it. I forced myself to get up. My legs felt too light, too shaky, like they weren't fully listening to my brain. I turned on every light as I moved through the house. Kitchen, bathroom, hallway. Everything looked normal again. I was almost convinced I had lost my mind until I stepped into the living room and saw it. A chair moved, turned toward the hallway, as if someone had been sitting in it, watching me walk back and forth. My throat closed. I backed away, step by shaky step, until I reached my bedroom and locked the door. I grabbed my phone with trembling fingers and dialed the police. The dispatcher said someone would come in 20 minutes. I didn't wait in the room. Every second felt like a countdown I didn't want to test. I left, barefoot, heart slamming, barely able to breathe, and ran out the front door to my car. The police found nothing. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, no fingerprints that weren't mine. They said maybe there was a draft that moved the chair. Maybe the window latch failed. But I saw how the officer's eyes flicked to each corner. He didn't believe the draft theory either. I didn't go back inside until morning. I should have left that morning, packed up and never looked back. But the human brain does a strange thing. It normalizes fear when it lasts long enough. I told myself the worst was over. I was wrong. 2 days later, I found the Polaroid. It was tucked neatly under my pillow, face down, like someone wanted me to find it only when I went to sleep. My stomach dropped. The second I touched it, the edges were warm. Too warm for a picture that should have been sitting under a pillow all day. I turned it over. It was a picture of me, sleeping, taken from inside the room, right beside my bed. So close I could see the tiny crease on the side of my mouth, the shape of my breath fogging the air. On the bottom, in messy handwriting, "I like watching you pretend you're alone." I moved out that night. I don't know how long he'd been in the house, or how many times he stood in the doorway while I slept, quiet enough to blending perfectly into the silence I once loved. The police never found him. But sometimes, when I am home alone, I swear I hear breathing syncing with mine again, waiting to slip back into the quiet. I've camped alone in Frostpine Forest every winter for years, and I've always liked how quiet it is. Silence in most places feels empty, but silence out here usually feels calm, clean. The kind of stillness that slows your heartbeat and makes your thoughts settle. But this time, the quiet felt different in a way I couldn't describe. It wasn't peaceful. It felt tense, like the whole forest was listening to me instead of resting. The cold didn't bother me at first. I'd layered properly, set up my tent, started a small fire, and was settling in for the night when something strange started happening. My breath wasn't just fogging, it crystallized into tiny drifting flakes, like glitter falling from my mouth. I'd never seen anything like it, but I tried to laugh it off. Around midnight, I heard soft pressure on the snow outside. Not footsteps exactly, too light, too slow, too deliberate, more like someone trying not to be noticed. I held my breath and listened. Whatever was moving out there circled my tent. One slow crunch, pause, another crunch. It wasn't random. Whatever it was choosing each step with care. I finally unzipped the tent just enough to peek outside with my flashlight. That's when my night flipped inside out. There was a cabin standing in the clearing. A whole cabin, old, frostbitten, leaning slightly as if it had been here longer than the trees around it. But it wasn't here yesterday. I know that for a fact. This clearing has always been empty. At first I thought my eyes were messing with me, because the cabin was pulsing, very subtly, like a living chest inhaling and exhaling. The snow behind me crunched. I spun around just in time to see a footprint appear in the snow. Not stamped, formed, pressed slowly into the surface as if by an invisible foot. Then another, and another, heading toward me. My throat tightened. I aimed the flashlight everywhere, but nothing was there. Just the woods, dark and silent, and the cabin with its warped door hanging open. Warm air drifted from inside, warm enough that it fogged the doorway. But the inside didn't look warm. My light didn't reach the back. The dark inside that cabin felt thick, like a hallway carved into pitch-black stone. Something moved in there, dragging itself, a slow, heavy scrape across wood. A whisper followed it, a quiet breath against the cabin walls. "Welcome back." My skin crawled. I had never been here. I know that for a fact. But something in that voice made a memory flare. A place I didn't recognize but somehow felt guilty about. I stepped backward. The tree line didn't look right. Trees weren't where they should be. They were rotating. Not dramatically, but just enough that the forest kept shifting, slowly turning me back toward the cabin, no matter which direction I faced. I tried to run, left, right, deeper into the woods. It didn't matter. Every time I broke a line of branches, the cabin stood there again, closer than before, the edges of its windows trembling like eyelids.
Footprints started appearing in a circle around me, tightening little by little, too many to count. They formed faster now, as if whatever made them had stopped pretending to move slowly. My chest was tight, my legs were shaking, and the whisper, that voice, came again, right beside my ear this time. You left us first, so you return first. The snow under my gloves felt warm suddenly, almost alive, like something underneath pressed upward, soaking heat from my hands. I jerked them away and stood up fast, stumbling backward until I crashed into a tree. Faces appeared behind the foggy cabin windows. Dozens, some pressed so close their frozen lips flattened against the glass, eyes open, watching me. The cabin walls expanded and shrank, not visually dramatic, but enough that I felt it more than saw it, like pressure waves in the air. A hand, long, pale, too many joints, slid around the edge of the doorframe from the inside. Then another. They gripped the wood like someone pulling themselves closer to the light. The footprints around me closed in. The snow under my legs sank, gripping me like hands underneath the surface. The cabin groaned, a deep, hungry noise that came not from inside it, but the cabin itself. My scream got swallowed by the cold. The snow pulled me downward, something dragged me toward the open doorway, and the last thing I saw before the darkness wrapped over my head was the cabin's window. Blinking, slow, deliberate, satisfied.
They always warned us about the winters in Graywater Hill, but I'd lived here my whole life. A harsh blizzard wasn't anything new. We'd had storms that shook the rooftops and froze the river solid. We always came out fine. So when the storm rolled in without warning that night, I didn't think much of it. I made tea, wrapped myself in a blanket, and listened to the wind rattle the windows. Sometime after midnight, the house went quiet. Not power outage quiet. I mean, everything stopped. No wind, no creaking wood, no distant plow trucks. Even the sound in my own ears felt muted, like someone had pressed hands over them. When I woke in the morning, I tried to open my front door. It didn't even wiggle. The snow wasn't piled against it. It felt fused to the frame, like cement. I pushed harder and heard nothing but my own heartbeat, dull and slow in my chest. I ended up climbing into the attic and pushing my way out through a small roof hatch. When the cold hit my face, I froze in place. My entire town was gone. Not destroyed, not collapsed, buried. The snow had swallowed the buildings until only rooftops poked through like tombstones. The sky was a single sheet of gray that didn't move. No clouds drifting, no sun behind it, just one dead, blank ceiling. I shouted for anyone, neighbors, friends, anyone, but my voice didn't travel. It got swallowed inches from my mouth. Then I heard the first tap, faint, deep beneath the snow. I knelt and pressed my ear to the white surface. Something shifted far below. Tapping again, followed by a scrape, then more taps. So many I couldn't guess how many people or hands or things were making them. I tried to convince myself it was pipes or ice cracking, but the taps weren't random. They had a rhythm, a pattern. They were communicating. I made my way across the rooftops to the town square. It was the only spot I could recognize by the shape of the old clock tower roof sticking out of the snow. The wood looked splintered from inside the building, like someone had broken upward trying to escape. That's when I saw the first hand. It burst through the snow with a violent jerk, fingers curled and trembling, skin gray with frostbite. The hand wasn't reaching to climb out, it was reaching up, like something beneath had yanked it skyward. Before I could even gasp, the arm jerked downward again, swallowed by the snow, dragged back into whatever nightmare was below. I backed away, heart pounding so hard the silence shook with it. More hands erupted nearby, some small, some adult-sized, clawing upward for just a moment before being ripped back down. They didn't scream, they made no sound, only the snow shifted with their desperate movements. Something massive moved under the surface,
I felt it before I saw anything as a long, slow ripple that traveled through the snowbank like a wave under a white ocean. The tapping increased all around me, fast, urgent, chaotic. The snow split open behind me, creating a narrow fissure that stretched across the square. Steam rose from it, warm and damp, smelling like wet earth and something else, something rotten. I didn't want to look, but I did. Inside the crack, beneath layers of snow, I saw shapes writhing in the dim light. Too many to count. Arms tangled, bodies pressed together, long twisting limbs that didn't move like people anymore. They were alive, or something close to alive, and they were being held there, dragged there, absorbed there. I ran across the rooftops, slipping on ice, scrambling for balance. Every step sent vibrations into the snow, and each vibration made the thing beneath respond. The snow lifted in smooth, rounded mounds as something huge swam under me. The roof of the pharmacy collapsed behind me, just dropped, and the snow poured into the hole like a flood, swallowing the building whole. I heard tapping directly beneath my boots. Then the roof cracked. I barely managed to lunge onto the next rooftop before the one behind me caved in with a deep, wet crunch. Somehow I made it back to my house. Somehow I got inside. I barricaded myself in the attic. That's where I've been for I don't know how long. The sky hasn't changed. The silence hasn't lifted. Every few hours, if hours even exist anymore, I hear the tapping under the floor. Slow, patient, following the shape of my house. It's waiting for me to step somewhere weak. It wants me to slip. I know now the storm never buried Graywater Hill. It fed the town to something beneath it. Something that woke up hungry. Something that didn't care who we were, only how warm our bodies felt through the snow. And I can feel the floor sag a little more every day.